And so welcome to season 5 of Teh Tarik with Walid. Well, every season is just 10 episodes. So this is episode 41 and I am extremely delighted to kick off season 5 with somebody whom I've wanted to have on for a long time, but now I think the opportunity presented itself with the launch of his media outlet, Jom Media, which he will talk about. So that will be the focus of tonight. So hopefully it will be a laid back, fun episode. And he is an extremely humorous person. So Sudhir Thomas Vadaketh. He's mostly on Facebook because that's where people his age usually operate, people our age usually operate. But today is his foray into Instagram Live, so I'm looking forward to that. So you guys know Sudhir, just a little bit about him. He is the author of a couple of books, including Hard Choices, where he co-authored, co-edited with Donald Low, and another extremely interesting book. But today we're not going to talk about those books. I mean, maybe tangentially. Today we'll be talking about his new media outlet called Jom Media. So I will accept his request and hopefully all will go well. All right, how are you?
Yeah, good. I didn't quite appreciate that like slightly ageist joke about young people using IG and older people like me using Facebook.
That was just
But aside from that, it was a very nice intro. Thanks, buddy.
that was factual, right? Don't you think? I mean, I'm facing the same problem also. I spend most of my time on Facebook rather than Instagram, and I'm not on TikTok at all. And most of my students don't even use Facebook. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we are relics, right? So
Yeah, no,
we,
it's interesting. I mean, I guess the different platforms serve different purposes. But
yeah,
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 there's definitely an age segmentation,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
why it's good to be on different ones.
And who it depends who we want to reach also, right? Then we can cater the post or our engagement to different platforms. So tell us about Jom Media and why Jom Media, right? So people would say there are already enough online outlets, right? The alternative media is saturated. You have Mothership, you have Rice Media. So why Joe Media? Why is there a need? What function does it serve?
Um, well, I think there are a few things that we're bringing that's different to the table. Firstly, if you look at a lot of the current online media sites, so you mentioned Mothership and Rise, I think their business model is quite different from ours. And so what that means, different model meaning that they are advertising dependent. So what that essentially means is that they are always sort of geared towards chasing more eyeballs for their content, right? Because that will allow them in turn to attract advertisers, greatest number of eyeballs they have, and that has a way of like incentivizing journalists and incentivizing the outlet in a different way. You end up basically pushing out a lot more content that, for lack of a better word, might be sensationalized sometimes, might be chasing the hot topic of the day, and those incentives, I think, basically affect the kind of original content that you can put out, and not just in terms of topic choice, but in terms of how you structure the actual piece, the sorts of headlines that you choose. You're always looking for stuff that will get you high engagement on social media, that will get you high eyeballs. Whereas Joe, largely because of our business model, which is a subscription-based, reader-funded model, that kind of like insulates us from these short-term pressures, and allows us actually to put out a lot more original content where we're not actually, just chasing eyeballs, but we are actually, trying to create long investigative pieces that actually can delve deeply into issues, not just issues that might be the flavor of the day, but issues that are really important to tackle that sometimes take many, many months to produce.
Okay, so
Hey, what
so the difference between Jom and others would be that because it's a subscription-based business model, you are able to do more quality content, or it's more I don't know whether that's fair, quality content, but you are able to do content which doesn't rely on short-term sensationalism, and I think that's fair. I guess the question is, how sustainable is this then?
Could I just pause then and tell everybody about the two subscriptions that we're actually giving away today,
Carry on. Yeah, carry on.
and then we can resume because
Yes,
one
okay.
of them actually is beneficial that
Okay,
the audience
sure.
knows about ahead
Sure.
of time. So yeah, as I mentioned, Jom is a subscription business, and we'll be giving away 2 1-month subscriptions. And so I'll ask 2 questions during the course of today's chat. The first one, which I'm going to ask now, you can sort of take your time to think about and answer. And we've got people monitoring all the comments. And the second one, maybe I'll ask midway through our conversation. Maybe you can prompt me, Walid.
Yeah,
So,
okay, sure.
So the first one is like a fun one. It's about like bit of like fun wordplay around Jom, you know. So we've been like thinking of different names or permutations of Jom that you know can have a special meaning or sound catchy and that you know we can sort of adopt. So we internally started calling each other Jomrads, you know. So that's one thing. And then somebody suggested Jomradery the other day as a form of camaraderie inside Jom.
Right.
The other day, a friend of mine also suggested just dropping when in Jom, you know, because people often ask me how do you pronounce Jom, and I often say it rhymes with Rome, right? So some people say when in Jom, like when in Rome. So anyway, so the first question is we're hoping that you guys can come up with the most inventive, fun wordplay, anything around the word Jom. And whoever suggests like a Jom related word or some Jom permutation that we think is the most fun, so that person and just key in your comments over the course of this chat. We'll award the first prize, the first subscription to that person.
Oh, nice.
So,
that's good. Yeah. So in fact, you know, me and my wife and I, when we want to leave, we'll just say, you know, it's very normal for Malay speaking folks just to say Jom, right? But we just say amongst ourselves Jomsters. I don't know how that came about also, but yeah. Oh, I see you're not drinking Teh Tarik, Sudhir.
Jomsters, yeah. Cheers, by the way, Walid. Thanks for allowing
it's okay.
me to.
It's a secular occasion. So even though it's a non-halal drink, it's fine.
No, it's funny. I mean, like throughout my growing up, I mean, I used to, you know, go to Adam Road, spend a lot of time there, late at night. Al-Azhar, you know, I spent a lot of time in my youth in Al-Azhar. And I mean, those days, yeah, I can drink like 10 cups of Teh Tarik over the course of a few hours, but these days too some, man. I mean, I won't be able to get to sleep before 6 a.m. or something if I drink Teh now.
Right, I understand,
yeah.
Okay, so I was asking Sudhir, as I think some our audience they are thinking about the pun or wordplay. So is this a sustainable business model? You know, I don't know whether you are familiar with Breaking Points, Crystal Ball and Saga and Jetty. So they are this they have a YouTube show. So theirs is a similar model to yours, although they have the public content as well, where YouTube is open to all, but they also rely on subscription because they are left and right populists in the States. They do a daily show weekday, and the reason why they did the subscription model is that is very reliant on YouTube's algorithm, and YouTube can easily screw them, and YouTube has done that before, where YouTube can just change the algorithm and their videos will not appear as much. So do you think it's sustainable given the market here and given that there are all these other options? Like somebody who's subscribing to Rise, maybe then they think, why do I need to pay $10 a month to be to be a member, which I am, by the way. I have subscribed in a show
Oh, you
of
are?
support. I am.
Oh, thanks.
I am. Yeah. Oh, so is Jom equals join our movement? So that's a question or a pun.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you are a journalist, I suppose.
I'm a journalist. Oh, that's not bad. I'm a journalist. Okay.
No, man. No, yeah,
I think I can run with that.
Okay, yeah. So do you think it's sustainable?
I think that is going to be our biggest challenge. So, I am very confident about the quality of our product. I'm very happy with a lot of the early pieces that we've already put out. I think the site is looking very good. The team we have in place is great. I actually have no worries at all about the content that we're going to put out, and I think it's going to be different enough for the Singapore market that people should see the premium and the value and why there's a need to pay for something like that, and how it's different from what's out there already. Partly what I mentioned earlier about the business model allowing us to do different kinds of journalism that's not currently available. But you're right. I mean, I think there's a big mindset shift that we're going to have to push along, engineer, and because Singaporeans, I mean, people all over the world, because of the digital revolution, have become a bit addicted to free content. Particularly journalism. So it's not just true of Singapore, but in many parts of the world.
Right.
And again, a lot of the newer quote unquote content creators, they rely on advertising, and so that business model means that the end user, the reader or viewer, or whatever, doesn't actually pay anything in terms of hard cash. But in a way, you could argue that the end user in that kind of a model, is the product, right? The end user is the product, right? Because their eyeballs are essentially being monetized for the advertisers of the big corporations. So I think there is a mindset shift that we're going to have to push to try to get people to understand the value of paid journalism. If you think about the Straits Times, which has almost, like, I'm not wrong, if you add up all their subscribers, it's like almost 400,000 people that the Straits Times has.
Wow.
Subscribers.
They still do?
I'm sure like 100,000 of those are like free, given out to schools and government agencies who are forced to buy 6 times that. But they have a lot now, right? And our base level sort of break-even point is 3,500 subscribers.
Okay.
So I don't think it's going to be easy by any measure, but I think all of us in the team think it's something that's achievable.
Right. How many do you have so far in your short stint?
I think we have about 200.
Okay.
Just over 200.
Okay.
And we just launched.
Yeah, you just launched a couple of days ago, right? Yeah.
And so it's decent. We have over 2,000 sign up to our newsletter.
Nice.
So,
okay.
And the newsletter is free. So all of you out there listening who maybe are still wondering whether to sign up, you can always sign up for the newsletter first and get a bit of a taste for the content that we have before committing to a paid subscription. But yeah, I think the market risk is our main and biggest risk, that are Singaporeans willing to pay for content, but I think I may not have tried this 5 or 7 years ago. I don't think anybody would have joined me at that point either. But I think if you look at the market, there have been a few things that have happened that maybe give us a sense that now is the time. One of them, you can see Singaporeans more and more eager and hungry for good original content, and I think some people seeing Mothership and Rise maybe not living up to the expectations that they had for independent media, so maybe looking for something else. I think the other thing is that over the past maybe 3 to 4 years,
you cannot just say that and then move on. So what do you mean?
I'll come back. But the other thing, which is very quick, is I think over the past 3 to 4 years, the consumer has become sort of more habitualized to subscription products. Now,
Right.
whether it's Netflix or the New York Times
Right.
or whatever,
Right.
I
Right.
think
Right.
the Singaporean has become more used to seeing like a monthly bill or
Right.
Patreon or supporting different content creators. So I think people are getting used to seeing a sort of a monthly bill on their statement. So I think that's one market shift that's given us a bit of confidence.
I see. Okay.
I'm done with that. You wanted me to come back to Rice and Mothership, is it?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that, is that
yeah,
what you want me to come back to?
well, you brought it up.
Yeah. I'm fine. I'm fine to
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Carry on. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm good friends with the owners of both companies.
Ah, okay, okay, I
I've
see.
written
Okay.
for them before.
Right.
I'd happily work for them again in the future.
Okay.
But I think what I said earlier, it's largely because of their business model that forces them to chase eyeballs, that basically just shifts your editorial in a particular direction. And I think certainly for me, I mean, I'll speak as a reader of Rice, for example. When Rice first came around, I think it's 5 or 6 years ago, I thought there was a lot more sort of edgy, original,
Right.
interesting content. And I think over time, again, because of the market forces that exert themselves on a business model like that, I think it's kind of shifted towards a lot more sort of product-based content marketing, a lot more sponsored content, essentially,
Okay.
which I don't want to make any moral judgments here.
Yeah, of
That's their
course.
business model,
Of
and,
course,
and,
of
and,
course.
and they'll be around for a while, and so
Yeah,
will
yeah.
Mothership. But I think we're just trying to fit ourselves into a different space.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So do you think it's just that the business side that has made them shift their focus, or do you think there's a political element here also, right? Being eager to not cross the line, or being very careful to not cross any political lines.
Yeah. No, that's a great question, because if you look at the method of control, right, in Singapore today, uh, if you wind the clock back 20, 25 years, the government had a lot more control over the media, right? The internet had just come
Yeah.
about, and there weren't that many independent sites and whatnot. Social media wasn't around. So the government could more easily control the media, but in today's world, with much greater diversity of online sites and commentators and influencers on Instagram and all this, how does the government control the narrative? And the main way today is through the market. And what I mean the market is through advertising, right? So the advertising dollar is really strong in Singapore in terms of the government spend. So if you compare advertising spend across countries, right, in Singapore, the government takes up like a very big share of it, and what that
Okay.
essentially means is that the government can control media outlets through their wallets, right? Essentially,
Right.
so any media outlet that becomes dependent on government revenue, and this could be a big entity like Mothership, it could be a very small content creator on Instagram. It can be a content creator on YouTube. It can be somebody like Michelle Chong who does a lot of commission work for the government. So the
As
concept
gang.
of media itself is very diverse today, and that's how the government controls. So you're right. I suspect that any media outlet, and I would include Mothership and Rice in this, that depends on the government for commission content, sponsored content, suddenly you've got all these forces, whether it's self-censorship or even direct censorship acting on you.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. So I think let's move on to that question, right? So self-censorship in Singapore, do you think that is gonna be a huge problem for Jom, and how do you intend to get around that? So for instance, have you ever encountered this where people go up to you, for instance, and then they say they like your work, but they don't want to take a picture with you or something like that? You get what I'm saying, right? As in, maybe not to that extent, but the idea is they are always self-censoring, or they don't even want to subscribe because they don't know who's watching or whatever it is.
It's really funny you say that, because like the past few years, like I started like one thing I started doing on social media is like, I go and have lunches with people and all that. And I think I've done it with you as well, Walid. Like I'll take a photo and then write something short about the person.
Yeah.
And my original intention was just like, there are a lot of interesting, diverse people in Singapore, and whenever I meet them, I just want to share on social media, just write a little story about this different person that I'm meeting. But then what you said, then I realized some people are like, hey, no, don't want to be photographed with you, man. So I mean, as you might imagine, there are usually people in some shape or form in the establishment. And I think there is a bit of fear there. I know this isn't exactly your question on self-censorship, but there is a bit of fear there about being associated with the quote-unquote wrong people, for sure. So I go and choke people sometimes. I'll force myself. They might be a bit uncomfortable, but I'll force myself. I mean, it's partly also like just like loosen up, lah. It's like if we're trying to build a society where different viewpoints can be exchanged in a sane and fun way, right, without getting too personal, then part of it is the ability to associate ourselves publicly with people whose viewpoints we may not necessarily agree with.
Absolutely. And I think you even went out with Kelvin Cheng, right? And you did a post on that, and I
got a lot of shit for that, man. I got a lot of shit for that.
I can imagine, right? You got a lot of shit from your side, right? So from people who are on your side who would be against that. But I thought that was great. I
I would hesitate about using your side and my side, but I mean, I get what you mean. It's
right.
People
on
the non-establishment,
yes,
non-establishment people, I would say,
closer to your own philosophies and ideologies. So I think it's a sad situation if we cannot sit with people whom we disagree with, right? So
which is why I think your show is great, Walid. Your show is great. You invite many different people.
Thank you. Yeah,
you're like I was thinking you're like our, because you talk about the media, like your show effectively is also part of the media scene, right? And I was thinking you're kind of like our opera, you like chat with people. All you need to do now is like start a book club, start a Walid book club or something.
Oprah, wow. I don't know how to react to that. I was thinking you were gonna go for what, Trevor Noah or something.
Oh, you prefer Trevor Noah? Okay, sorry. We'll use Trevor Noah.
Okay. Yeah, but thank you. So I do see myself.
You should do baca buku dengan Walid. Forget pay, man. Forget TT, do BB.
Yeah. So that's the thing. The first question I had, it partly came from a personal standpoint as well, because I do see myself as part of this media, quote unquote, right? But this is my hobby, right? And I'm not making money from it. In fact, I'm losing a little bit of money for it. But I see this as my public work, right? Which I can afford because I have other things, as in I have another job. But if I were to do it full time, then my whole calculation would change. Right? I probably would be thinking as well, oh, who am I going to invite and all of that, which is why I think the subscription model, it's, even though it's very risky, I think it's really laudable what you're doing, and I think it allows you to control your content far more and not give in to all these pressures. I could never do such a thing. So I mean, really hats off to you for doing that. I mean, if I.
But do you feel limited? Do you feel limited in terms of your guests, like who you can invite because of your?
No, so I don't. The problem is there are many people who don't want to come on, and then I see them going on other people's lives, right? Okay, it's fine. It's fine. I'm obviously not bitter, as you can see. Yeah, but so I don't feel limited, but I won't say that. Even for me, that is no holds barred. I mean, ultimately, I do sometimes also think, oh, is this topic okay, or is this person? I mean, I have to be honest, and even I do fall and succumb to those thoughts as well. So there is a question by Arun. He is asking, what are your thoughts on the government's impending actions to tackle cancel culture? given that you have spoken about POFMA and things like that?
Firstly, I worry about the place that it comes from, the desire to cancel, the desire to tackle cancel culture. What is the root sentiment or emotion that it comes from? And my worry is that it's just out of a desire to control speech and you know, to control speech being one of it, but also to basically label quote unquote unpopular opinions, and these will be opinions mostly coming from the left, as problematic. And the way you do that is that when the left actually criticizes a position of somebody, so a very good example recently would be the 377A debate, right? So the government's position is that we don't want to stigmatize gays and the queer community, but at the same time, we cannot allow cancel culture to cancel the pro 377A people. So people in support of 377A should be allowed to also express their views.
Yeah.
And if we shut down this, then that's an example of cancel culture. Now, this is quite problematic because it comes from a desire to control speech, and essentially what you're saying is we don't want to stigmatize gays and the queer community, but we'll also allow, this is the government's position, we'll also allow pro 377A, meaning people who want to call them criminals, because if you're pro 377A, you're essentially calling, in today's world, gay men criminals. We should also allow this opinion. And that's problematic because you can't have both. You can't say, let's not stigmatize them, but let's also allow another, bunch of people, and a lot of them are religious leaders, to essentially call them criminals.
Okay, so
and then,
so maybe if not 377A, so if religious folks say that, oh, gay marriage is immoral in my faith or is disallowed in my faith, do you think that's crossing the line, or do you think that's unacceptable?
I think to say that, I mean, it gets back to the definition of marriage, and it also gets back to the platform that you're using, right? So if you say that family units and unions for, people other than a man and a wife, right? Or man and a woman, husband and wife, if you're saying that outside of that, we can't have family units and we can't have unions, and that's immoral, then yes, I think that's a problem. That's a bigoted point of view. Now, if you're just saying marriage as how you in your religion define it, and it's a very narrow perspective, then, because, and also the platform matters. So the platform matters and the message matters, I would say. And somebody wanting to stand up on a big platform and shoot down non-regular unions or family units, then yes, I think that is a problem. And I think people who criticize that platform should not then be said, oh, it's cancel culture and we got to stop this cancel culture. So I think that's my worry now, that the government doesn't quite understand the difference between a bigoted viewpoint on a platform and what actually should be acceptable discourse for a diverse, multicultural society.
Yeah, so Z says in response, surely context around that statement matters. If it's simply an expression of a personal view and respectfully delivered, that is not problematic. So would you say that's a fair characterization of what you just said?
Say again, sorry?
So if she said surely context around that statement matters, the statement I mentioned, if it's simply an expression of a personal view and respectfully delivered, then that is not problematic. I
mean, it really depends on the platform, the following. It depends on a lot of things. I mean, and modern technology and the internet and social media has changed the definitions around a lot of these things. So what is a personal view? Where is it broadcast? What's the following and power of the person delivering the quote unquote personal view? You can't just say that I'm delivering a personal view if it's actually bigoted and problematic and harmful to vulnerable communities in society. And the gay and queer community in particular has faced a lot of persecution in Singapore over the years. So I think there are a lot of different dynamics that come into play here.
So I did a 90-minute, close to 90-minute episode on 377A. So I don't want to really get that. But just final. No, it's okay. So just final one on this. So if let's say the Mufti of Singapore or the Catholic Church said that, oh, we believe that in our faiths, gay marriage is impermissible. So do you think that is still bigoted and that's still a problematic point of view?
I think it's potentially depending. I'm sorry to keep caveating this, but it is potentially depending on the platform and the audience and a lot of other things, right? But of course, I wouldn't deny the person the right to say that because essentially they're defining marriage according to their own religion.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're defining marriage according to your own religion, that's fine. But as long as you allow the space for society to say that there are other kinds of family units, there are other kinds of unions that are permissible, then that's fine. But often it's only the first that is given without the second.
Right. So you think if they only say the first without the second, then that's bigoted?
It is potentially problematic and it's potentially harmful to vulnerable communities in Singapore, yes.
Yeah, so
for sure.
So then Sudhir, then maybe you can see why religious folks are nervous when for many people of religion, well, not many, but at least for some faiths at least, so this would be something that they really believe in, right? So to say that if you say this belief of yours publicly and then you can be classified as a bigoted, then surely you see that this is why religious folks are nervous.
So what I would say to that is that I think there should be a healthier level of criticism in this country, right? So if somebody was to say something like that, I think somebody else should have the right to say, have the right to tell the Mufti or the leader of the Catholic Church or whatever, your statement is problematic and it's problematic for A, B, C, D, E.
Agreed.
And the person who delivers that message should not then be face blowback around the guise of cancel culture. You're trying to cancel the Mufti or you're trying to cancel the no. So that,
agreed.
I think there's a bit of it which is also like having a healthier discourse around criticism.
I absolutely agree. So I absolutely agree that no statement by the church or by the Mufti should is free from any challenge. Absolutely agree. And I don't think people who criticize that should be cancelled. And otherwise, then it's very easy to hide behind authority, right? So I guess my only concern is if religious folks is not even within their own faiths, they are not allowed to define what is permissible or what is not permissible. So that was my only concern. Any final thoughts on this, Sudhir, and then we'll move on to the other topics.
No, I think
Okay. Thank you, and thanks for that. That was a good exchange. So and that goes nicely to the question that I wanted to ask as well. So there is a belief.
Hey, wait, Walid.
Yeah. Carry on.
Can you tell me when we're like about halfway? Because I want to ask my second question.
Okay. We are halfway already. Yeah, carry on.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
Fine. So I'll just repeat the first question for those of you who might have come late. And we're asking these two questions because they're Jom is giving away 2 1-month subscriptions to whoever gets the right answers or the answers that we think are the best. So the first question, which some of you might have missed, which I asked at the start of the show, was around Jom wordplay. So come up with some funky new Jom words for us, which
journalist,
Jom
steady,
Red,
Jom PP,
when in Jom or what am I? A journalist? Somebody called me a
journalist.
Yeah. So the first one is around nice Jom permutations, and whoever comes up with the nicest one will get a 1-month subscription. Question 2, which I'm about to ask now, has 3 parts. I'll go through them very quickly. Wow. Sorry, Walid, take up your time.
No, it's okay. Carry on. Yeah.
But and this one, if you can answer the 3 parts in the same comment, so it's easier for us to track your answer, right? They're very short answers. So, but there are 3 parts. So first part is, Jom has 6 people listed in our team. How many are ethnic minorities?
Wow.
Jom has 6 in our team. How many are ethnic minorities? That's the first one. Second one is, one of our contributors wrote an article about their favorite Singapore movie. What movie was that? And third question is, Jom has 3 subscription tiers, 3 different paid subscription tiers, and what are they called? So what are the 3 subscription tiers called? So I'll repeat the 3 questions. How many ethnic minorities in our core team? One of us wrote an article about our favorite Singapore movie. What movie was that? And third one is, what are the 3 Jom subscription tiers called? Okay, whoever gets that right first wins the second subscription. Right. Okay, Walid.
I actually know the answer to the last one only, not the first 2. So they must answer all 3 questions, then they will get, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bit. Okay. It's a harder. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Can.
Oh, I mean, if nobody gets all 3, then whoever gets 2. I mean,
okay. Can. So by the way, there's one. Jom let me down. So Jom let me down. I assume it's don't let me down, but Jom means let's do it. So so it means please let me down, basically. So yeah. So you're part of a Jom unity. So that's another one.
Community.
Yeah.
Good thing nobody said Jomunist, man.
Okay, so Sudhir, so one of the things that one of the common criticisms is that the online media is always so liberal, and that's not Singapore society. And I mean liberal in every sense, whether it's socially or politically. And that's not Singapore society. That's not the median Singaporean. And online media and academics and online journalists and independent thinkers like yourself, we are out of step with the median Singaporean. How would you respond to that? And what is Jom's philosophy on this, right? So will Jom be more balanced, quote unquote, right? I say quote unquote because it's that term itself can be problematic, but what do you think? Oh, by the way, there is this attempt at all 3 answers. So the ridiculously random Rachel said the first is 3, second Saint Jack, third is member supporter Patreon.
Oh yeah.
Is that
and
correct?
My colleague Jean has told me that we already have a winner. Okay, so I'm guessing
right.
it's my
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. So that's Rachel, right? Okay. So we will decide on the first one.
I'm not sure who it is, but yeah.
So it's I'm writing it down. I will just pass you the details later. Yeah. So it's.
But Walid, we're also recording all the comments so we can double check later.
So wonderful. I usually do not do that, but thank you.
I wanted to relieve you of the pressure of like.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah. So maybe your team can help me with recording comments next time.
Yeah. Sure. Sorry,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay, so liberal, and that's not where majority of Singaporeans are at.
Okay, so I mean the word liberal is a bit
it's used, the words left and right as labels and liberal and conservative as labels. I mean, they are necessary shorthand. They're necessary shorthand to understand political dynamics. But I think in Singapore, I'd rather just use establishment and non-establishment. So I think, yes, you're right that a lot of the online alternative media tends towards non-establishment views and non-establishment positions and people, but I think we need to understand the history of this, because Singapore's media was very heavily controlled from the 1970s onwards, and through a whole bunch of different regulations and acts. The 1974 Newspaper Act being the first and most powerful one. And so I think certainly, so I moved back to Singapore in 2005 after 6 years in America. And I think certainly at that time, there was a sense that we needed alternative voices and people who would basically talk about issues that the mainstream media was not willing to talk about, or even if they were willing to talk about, could not do it in a deep, articulate, comprehensive way because of the political pressures that they're under. So I think what evolved then is quite a natural evolution, in the sense that, because you had a particular establishment viewpoint coming out of the mainstream press, the online media necessarily had to veer in that direction, So I think it's quite natural why it occurred that way in Singapore. Maybe not in other countries where even before the internet. So America is a great example. Even before the internet, you had Fox on the right and outlets like CNN on the left. That wasn't the case in Singapore. Singapore, all traditional media essentially was establishment. So yes, we've evolved in that direction, but it's a structural and institutional and historical reasons why. Now, since that has happened, I think we've had establishment people pushing back in different ways and trying to become more active online as well. So I don't want to mention Critical Spectator, but I guess there's no other way to talk about it. That person who runs that site, Critical Spectator, is probably the best example of an online platform that actually, is very similar in many ways to the alt-right in America, in some of the views that he's pushing. So I think it's a bit more diverse now. And if you remember what I said earlier about outlets like Mothership and Rise, because of their business model becoming more dependent on government revenue. So you could also argue that the quote unquote, non-establishment outlets and voices are also in some ways moving closer to the establishment side.
Right.
So I think it's a lot more diverse today.
Yeah. What I would say also is some online sites, they are socially liberal, or they are more willing to put forth socially liberal views, but not necessarily politically liberal views. So they may be some online websites, and you can see they would be very pro-LGBT rights, for instance. They would be pro-minorities, but not necessarily critical of the establishment. So I guess also that's a clever way, I guess, to reach out to the younger audience without basically offending the establishment as well. So there is no... Carry on. Yeah.
No, we still tend to put politicians on a pedestal. I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So we don't have a healthy climate of political criticism here.
Absolutely.
It's getting a lot better. And credit even to a lot of people at the Straits Times and other mainstream media outlets. I think coverage here is fairer than it was 20 years ago. The pace of change is so damn slow, but if you look at a 20-year period, you can see some difference in the
absolutely.
in the mainstream media coverage of the opposition, for sure.
Yeah, I thought actually mainstream media did really well during the 2020 elections. I thought they covered the opposition pretty well, and even the issues. Now the COP coverage, I think, was was lacking, but the elections, I think, from
Lacking,
2011.
that's a good euphemism, Walid.
That's
I would have used much harsher words, but by the way, about 5 hours ago, Walid told me not to use any profanities on the show, so I've been really watching my mouth.
I said unless necessary, then yeah. So I would say it is generally improving. So you're right. But yeah, so there is no desire on your part basically to have, Jom, let's say you're representing an article, right? You are talking about one issue, and then you get a pro and against. There is no desire at all on your part to do that.
So the question of balance is an interesting one, because I think it depends what people mean by balance. So
yeah,
if it's about the need to be comprehensive and have empathy towards all parties, then I think that's important. I think that's very important. But if balance is about the need just to show the other point of view, sometimes people call it both sidesism. If it's just about the need to, show the opposite point of view, then I think it's potentially problematic. And it's become a big issue in American journalism as well over the past 6 years since the Trump presidency. Because a lot of journalists there felt the need, under the auspices of balance, felt the need to either sugarcoat some of Trump's statements, like not directly call them racist when they were actually racist, or just showcase a particular bigoted point of view that Trump was espousing. So I think balance, balance for the sake of balance is actually problematic. But if when somebody says balance, all they mean is being rigorous in your method, talking to everybody who might be important in that story, then I think those are important qualities, right, for an outfit to have.
So what if those two overlap? So let's say Trump is a bigot, right? And he does parrot bigoted views sometimes. I mean, he's rarely ever original in the message, but maybe in the delivery he's pretty original. So he's saying a lot of views which have been said before by other bigots. But what if that view is held by 40-50% of the country? Then wouldn't it be wiser? It may not be more ethical, it may or may not be more ethical, but wouldn't it be wiser still to have that representation there? And then if you disagree with it, you can refute it, rather than call that view bigoted and then not give that. I understand the idea that you shouldn't give this a platform, but if 50% of the country believes that already, and when we exclude them, then these people will just say, oh, see, this is why mainstream media is so biased, they're excluding all of us. So wouldn't it be wiser to just include them in the conversation, even though we may find some of the views abhorrent? What do you think about that?
I think it depends on the extremity of the view and the platform as well. So, when I say platform, so for a media outlet, do you allow somebody a sentence in an article, or do you allow that person to write an entire op-ed, so to write an entire column, right, promoting that particular bigoted view? So I mean, let's take a concrete example, and I don't think there are easy answers around this. So the best way to think about this is around nativism and xenophobia, right? And so if you look at what's happened in Europe and to some degree America over the past 10-15 years, it's the rise of far-right parties. If you look at countries like Hungary, it's the rise of entire far-right governments, which have very, sort of xenophobic platforms essentially. And the argument is that it's better to actually allow a far-right party to form and contest, because exactly what you said, Walid, because then you are at least providing a democratic outlet for these bigoted views.
Yeah.
So I think, and I think liberals, and I mean liberal in the classical sense, right? Political liberal, they have a lot of problems with this idea, because, again, and I think it's also related to where we are in today's world in terms of technology and communication. It's so easy for problematic, bigoted views to actually have a very direct effect and impact on vulnerable communities. So in the case of Europe, it would be refugees coming from places like Syria, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in today's crazy, hyper-fast media environment, when you have a far-right politician who's allowed a platform, who's then able to espouse, extremely xenophobic views, the potential impact is much greater. And so I'm just painting to you the broad picture. And when it comes to a place like Singapore, is it better to allow, so let's keep on xenophobia and nativism. I think the people who, in my view, espouse some of the most problematic statements probably come from Lim Tian's party when it comes to migration and migrants. So, should a platform like ours, if we are having a conversation about Singapore's population and demographics and immigration and integration and SICA and what we do with SICA, is it imperative on us to allow Lim Tian a platform on Jom? I think I would have a lot of hesitation. I would actually have a lot of hesitation, because, if we offered somebody like Lim Tian a platform, depending on what agenda he wants to push, sometimes it's not clear whether politicians actually have that agenda, or they're actually just capitalizing on sentiment that they detect in the population in order to achieve some grander ambition. And but allowing somebody with forget Lim Tian the name, but allowing somebody with a xenophobic, nativist view a platform on Jom, I think would be very problematic. So and just because they represent 20% of Singaporeans or 30% of Singaporeans, I don't think we should, because of the potential, like I mentioned earlier, the potential for media in the world that we're in right now to have a direct and powerful impact on vulnerable communities. So let's say new Indian immigrants in this case.
So I think with regard to Jom, I think you're absolutely right? So as the editor-in-chief, you have the absolute right. You are under no obligation to present both sides or whatever it is, right? But don't you think, as a philosophy, right? If you believe in free speech, you believe in it, right? And the moment we say, oh, yes, I believe in free speech, but yours is bigoted, right? But don't you think that is dangerous for people who actually operate outside the mainstream? People like you and I, probably, right? Don't you think? Because then ultimately it's about power defining what is acceptable and what is not, what is bigoted and what is not, right? So wouldn't you think that kind of moral judgment in terms of who gets to speak, don't you think ultimately it will backfire against those who are on the outside?
It could possibly. And I don't think there are easy lines with any of these things. I don't think there are rules that can be easily set in place for what constitutes bigotry or what constitutes hate speech. It's extremely problematic. And especially if you look at online forums in America and other places where there are so many code words being used today. It's not even. So
the dog whistles, the code words.
And this gets back to actually the government's attempt to come down on cancel culture and antecedents of that are POFMA and FICA. You're trying to impose a top-down regimented structure on something that's actually very fluid and difficult, and actually that you need to allow society to organically talk through a lot more.
Right. And I think you're right. I think we agree that there are no easy solutions to this, and maybe we just haven't, as a species, we haven't come to terms with this, right? Because social media is a huge, and the internet age is a huge development in the history of our evolution, right? So there are a
Yeah,
few words.
but
Sorry, yeah,
I generally
carry
agree.
on. Yeah.
I generally agree with your impulse and sentiment. I mean, I'm not somebody who's in favor of clamping down on free speech. I mean,
Yeah.
For the past, many years, I've been trying to in Singapore, trying to promote more speech.
Right.
So it's
Definitely.
and I do have a lot of problems with the language police in places that are very dear to my heart, like Berkeley, where I went to school. I think
Right.
sometimes the language police in parts
Yeah.
of California and parts of the West in America, they go a bit overboard.
Yeah.
So I do recognize some dangers there of the extreme,
Yeah.
if you're gonna call them the extreme illiberal left, especially in America. But I don't think that situation exists in Singapore. And so in Singapore, when somebody like Mr. Shanmugam comes up against cancel culture, I'm a bit wary, I'm a bit wary, because I don't think we have that situation here that warrants coming down hard on cancel culture.
Okay, yeah. Oh, thankfully you just left it there. Yeah, okay. So
Don't worry. Walid, I'm not gonna attack every politician in Singapore on your show, man.
I'm already worried. Just now
I'll
you
just
mentioned
mention them
Limnet,
once or twice.
critical spectator. Am I gonna get lawyers letter? All of this after this? Don't worry. I mean, this is a free platform, right? So I mean, I definitely share your sentiments on that. Also, just a quick one on. I think the illiberal left will turn a lot of people away from the left. I think, and the left has to deal with this idea. It comes from a good place, but at times there is an upper middle class element to this. There is some condescension in the way people deal with others who may not necessarily agree with their views, and I think the end result is just going to be disastrous for the left. So I agree with you that we don't see that in Singapore yet, but don't you think that's coming? I mean, that's
Not
Twitter
really.
language already. You don't think so? Yeah.
No, not really.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
really.
Yeah.
I think we have a very. I mean, if you're talking about real cancel culture in terms of like horrific public shaming, deplatforming, like getting somebody fired from their job, I don't think we necessarily have that culture here in Singapore.
Okay.
So I think a lot of the criticism, which is called cancel culture, I think a lot of that criticism is actually valid criticism. I don't think I see much of it at all.
Okay. All right.
And as one of your viewers very smartly commented, the G is the original canceller, which is absolutely true.
No, I agree that I don't think the government should be talking about cancel culture. I agree with that. But I also think that there is such a thing as cancel culture. I mean, even sometimes I speak to some younger people, some of my students, right? Some of the views that they have, they do not dare to express to even some of their other friends. And they definitely do not dare to express it online, right? Because fear of getting cancelled. Right now, you may say that fear is unfounded or what, but I think it's gonna be more of an issue later on, and maybe for a different crowd, maybe for Twitter or TikTok. So the younger audience, maybe this fear is more apparent. I don't know. I don't really have the data for that, but just anecdotally, I do see that younger people are more fearful of that, I think. And that would be a shame, because I think that is another layer of self-censorship that we really don't need. Already we have so many different reasons for self-censorship, and I think we don't need that, right? Sorry, just to go back to the first challenge, right? So Jombori. So Yan Chong, Professor Yan Chong said that. Wait, I thought there was another. Yeah. Jom Nom Nom. Yeah, so I saw another one just now. But yeah, Jom Unity, yes, that was the other one. Yeah, so Jom Unity, okay. Oh, so the
Oh yeah,
audience is
sorry.
really trying hard. Yeah. Carry on. Mambo
I
Jumbo, I don't think that's a good reflection of the work you're doing. So,
what is it?
yeah.
Jombu? What?
Mambo Jumbo.
Mambo Jombu. Not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
Many of my Wednesdays in my youth were spent there, for better or worse. But
Yeah.
no, for the question one, which is the permutations of Jom, we'll actually announce the winner tomorrow, I think.
Okay,
Because
all right.
there
Can.
there
Yeah.
are a lot of different options, and I
Okay.
think
So I'll leave it to you to announce the winners for both, I suppose. Yeah, and then I'll share
yeah,
the
yeah. I think
results.
the three question thing we have a winner, but
Yeah.
the other one
Okay.
we
Sure.
just wanted to have a chat because it's
All right. Okay. So thank you. The audience has been really participative. And any
it's great. I'm very happy.
Yeah. So your tactics worked. But I think a lot of people are quite excited to see where Jom would go. So this leads to my final question. So in 10 years' time, where does Jom fit in your vision for Singapore and your vision for Jom as well? And the assumption, of course, is that Jom becomes a successful outfit, as successful or more successful than Rise Media and Mothership, hopefully, and is still around. So where does Jom fit in? By the way, there was one comment earlier on. Sudhir, I hope Jom doesn't sell out like the other online outlets. Yeah. So what? Where do you see Jom in 10 years in the wider vision of your wider vision of Singapore?
Yeah, in terms of sellout in 10 years, I mean, the scenario that I'm worried about is that in 2 or 3 years, we are just like kind of like stumbling along. You know, we built a good brand, but we're not very commercially sustainable yet. And then we perhaps get a big offer from one or two individuals to inject money into our brand. That's actually the scenario that worries me the most, because and you know, there are many media companies around the world that are now being supported by one or two rich people, and I don't think that would be good for us. But yeah, that's a potentially bad scenario. So I do hope that we get enough reader funding, you know, people subscribing to Jom. In 10 years' time, well, in 10 years' time, you just where I see Jom in Singapore, I hope that by that point, so our current focus is on long form journalism and photography. I hope that by 10 years, we're doing a lot more. We're doing a lot more video. We're doing a lot more podcasts. We're in different formats. We hopefully have different editors across all the different, you know, departments or verticals, arts and business and technology. We want to do a lot more business journalism. You know, I think in Singapore, people often think about politics as a no-go area and a place where you need a lot more critical journalism. But I think business and finance is another big area.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and it's also related again to advertising, right? So media companies are afraid to criticize SIA. They're afraid to criticize Grab. They're afraid to, because they're all big advertisers. The one sector that people keep telling me to write about is insurance. You know, so your insurance companies are big advertisers. Nobody wants to touch them. So nobody knows why they keep jacking up our premiums and doing all kinds of funny things to us. And so I think we do want to have a lot more business investigative journalism coming out of Jom. I think that's very important for Singapore. In fact, I would almost argue that political journalism now is at a more advanced level than business journalism in Singapore.
Wow, that means the level of business journalism is really sad. If that is
yeah, I you know, proper. I mean, small outfits like Tech in Asia do a little bit, you know. So when Honest Bee went bust, you know, I think Tech in Asia did something, but it's still it's very immature, you know. We've got a long way to go.
Right.
And So we hope to be across a lot more formats, but I also hope in 10 years' time that we've expanded maybe overseas. So
Oh, wow.
possibly if we do well and we're around in 10 years, then possibly places like KL and Penang and maybe Jakarta.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So that would be English, or you're thinking of vernacular
Yeah,
as well,
yeah,
bahasa?
yeah. I think it would be English.
Okay.
I think part of our business thesis is that, obviously Singapore, there's a segment of people who want a good literary magazine, but our thesis is that across Southeast Asia, actually, there's enough of a critical mass in each of those countries that would probably appreciate an English language magazine.
Okay.
There are enough Indonesians and Thais and Malaysians
Yeah,
who
yeah,
have
yeah.
either studied abroad or
Yeah,
English is their second language or
absolutely.
whatever lah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I think for sure.
so yeah, I don't think we can compete in local language in these countries, but I think a good English literary magazine, if we built our brand and base here and then moving abroad, I think it might be possible.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I'll end off reading these two very encouraging comments. So from Angie, she is an illustrator herself, also appeared on the show before. She said Jom's illustrations are great. And Acrobat's wife 76 says that I see Jom as the substation of the art scene, and Jom represents to me what purists of real journalism were inspired to study the course, basically study journalism. Yeah, so that's
Oh,
really,
that's nice. That's
yeah,
nice.
that's really nice. That's really nice. Yeah. So this
Thank
one,
you.
I see Jom as an outfit that toes along the line but never crosses it. So it provides a moment of thrill with each article. Oh, that's interesting. That's really that's an art, right? If you are, I don't know whether that's a fair characterization, but if you do that, I mean, that's really an art, right? But I thought that ship has sailed for you, Sudhir.
What should you mean? I keep crossing the line, or what? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
I should drop some heavy commentary now about our political leaders, so your show also crosses the line.
Okay, final question, Sudhir. So I like to end on a conciliatory note. So who is your favorite PAP MP other than Mariam, who I know is a personal friend? So other than Mariam Jaafar, who is your favorite PAP MP and why?
Hey, Larry. I mean, Larry. I know Larry, man.
Larry?
No, hey, don't tell him I call him Larry. I don't call him Larry first.
You know him personally, is it, Larry?
I know.
You used to play guitar together.
We overlap 1 year in grad school.
Ah, okay. So and you he's your favorite because
I don't have. He's not on speed dial, But I mean, if we happen to be in the same room, we'll talk,
Is it okay? Right.
Yeah. But who's my favorite? Who's my favorite PAP MP? Did you say PAP?
Yeah. PAP. Yeah.
You said PAP, yeah. Wow. I guess I would still have to say Tarman lah, despite my misgivings.
I usually tell people not Tarman. Other than Tarman. Usually I tell people other than Tarman. Yourself, I said Mariam because I thought.
Other than Tarman.
Yeah. Other than Tarman. Because
Tarman,
that's the easy one. Everybody will just Tarman, right? Yeah.
Other than Tarman. So other than Tarman and other than Mariam, who's in JC.
Yeah.
Man, this is the hardest question of the evening, man. You should have told me to go and read up PAP bios before the show, man.
In the spirit of reconciliation.
I'm really. I'm not joking, man. I'm really. I'm lost. I don't really.
I asked
I wouldn't
Dr.
want to, I don't want to say anybody, like, I don't even really, like, know anybody else.
Right. Okay. Fine. I shall not put you on the spot too much. So, when I asked Dr. Chi, he actually couldn't think of one. He didn't want to say anybody, and he said Lim Chin Siao. He went
I mean, okay, so, okay, I'll say what I'll say.
Okay.
I actually quite like Heng Swee Kiat,
Okay.
who I've met a couple of times, and I've interacted with a couple of times. I feel a bit sorry and sad the way his political career changed over the past 2 years. But like he was one of the few like PAP ministers that I met that I actually felt had a lot of heart for everybody. Not just everybody in the room, wherever he was, like a lot of heart, a lot of time for everybody, but also for everybody in society lah. The way he actually like genuine care for a lot of people in society. Now he has a lot of critics for a whole bunch of reasons, and we don't have to get into that right now. But yeah, I actually think Heng Swee Kiat is a really like nice guy.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sudhir. I really enjoyed today's conversation. Sorry, we went over by about 13 minutes. So do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to say? Oh, Alfian just joined us. We are just ending. So
yeah, I wanted to ask you when you're starting your Oprah book club. You have to break out. Walid, now you're like 5 seasons now. It's time to break out of the mold, man. You gotta become like coffee with Karan, or
coffee with Karan. I mean, I guess
this to the next. Take this to the next level, man.
I need more viewers for this first. I need more PAP folks to come on first. Then I can take it to the next. Yeah, thank you so much, Sudhir. I really enjoyed this conversation. All the best with Jom.
Me too. And thanks for
no problem.
The
pleasure was completely mine, and I have subscribed. So for my viewers as well, please subscribe, and we should support. I subscribe to Straits Times as well. No, so we should support especially our independent media as much as possible. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Good night, Sudhir. Good night, everyone. Bye bye.